It's Mizzou That's Who postgame show here on KC Sports Hour. Tucker Franklin hanging out with you, talking Chiefs or not Chiefs, Mizzou, Virginia. As I'm a little rattled by the final of that game, by what happened in that Mizzou game there. Final score: Virginia 13, Missouri 7. The way that game ended was very odd, and the way that Matt Zollers was pulled off the field by the officials and you have a true freshman come into the game and Brett Brown, a junior come into the game and Brett Brown and throw a pass that hits a receiver in the hands to go falling complete. A game that was, frankly, by all accounts, a very bizarre, a very weird game, as Missouri could not move the football. Matt Zollers, 12 of 22, 101 yards and one interception on the day, 84 quarterback rating. It's a 55% completion percentage. A very bizarre game for Missouri, obviously, with Eli Drinkwitz calling the plays. The first drive looked really good for the Missouri Tigers. The second drive and everywhere else looked awful. Frankly, it looked awful on the offensive side of the ball for the Missouri Tigers. They score a touchdown, as I mentioned, on their first drive and then don't score again. They don't score again. They attempt a field goal that is horribly missed. Might be one of the worst field goals I've ever seen this team attempt. And it's just all downhill. An interception from Matt Zollers in the third quarter there was incredibly brutal. And then 2 turnovers on downs. Bad game all around for Missouri. Virginia came out and they just kind of absolutely dominated. They had 10 total drives to Missouri's 11 total drives. Average time of possession for Virginia was 3:49, 3 minutes and 49 seconds. And they had a 70-plus yard drive. And only 1 3-and-out for Virginia. The Chiefs Lover 1332 says, was the kicker seeing double? Because that's the only explanation. Yeah, man, I don't know, dude. That was so bizarre, that field goal. I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that there was nobody in the stadium and it made it look a lot emptier and where he was going to kick the field goal. I don't know, guys. But that one was very brutal game for Missouri. And not a very fun football game to watch, frankly. Christian Mayberry says, look, Zollers has showed a lot of potential, but in the same breath shows you how far away he is. I think tonight shows us how our problem runs a lot deeper than play calling. 'Tis the season of the portal. Sean Kurt says, I think we might be able to say Kirby actually wasn't the problem, maybe. 45 passing yards after 2 weeks to prepare, that's unacceptable. It sure looked like the old Bazelak Drink offense to me. I do think there was a little bit of components of, I don't know if Drink is necessarily the best play caller out there. I don't know if Drink, I think Drink's relinquishing of the play calling duties was probably the right call. Because it wasn't good. It wasn't good all around. Tyler Collins says Drink may be the worst play caller I've ever seen. Curtis Nelson also says, I understand Eli isn't the normal play caller, but he was total ass all night. How do you not have Hardy in there? Also, the defense was total ass on 3rd and 4th down most of the night. Yes, they were. 3rd down defense was absolutely brutal. Looking at the comparison, 308 total yards for the Virginia Cavaliers to Missouri's 260 total yards. 159 of those coming on the ground for Missouri. Only 110 rushing yards for Virginia. But what really hurt, as I think Michael Blair brought this up, third down defense broke this team. It did indeed, because 13 of 23 was Virginia's 3rd down conversions. They had 23 third downs in this game. They converted 13 of them. And when they went for it on 4th down, they're 2 of 4. Missouri was 3 of 12 on 3rd down. 3 of 12 on 3rd down for Mizzou, 0 of 3 on 4th down. It is incredibly brutal to have a defense that's kind of carried you the whole year And it really looked like on this first drive that Virginia wasn't going to be able to line up with Mizzou, is what it looked like. It looked like Mizzou was going to be able to run them out. It looked like it was going to be a good game for Missouri. It looked like they just kind of like out-talented them, right? That's what it looked like. But as the game went along, Virginia did a much better job of adjusting to what they saw. Missouri basically had no answers for what they were getting. They couldn't run the football, even though they have one of the best running backs in the country. They refused to put him on the field for some reason. Look, and I like Jamal Roberts too. Like, that's the other part. And I know a lot of people get upset when Eli Drinkwitz pulls, or whenever they do their running back rotation, right? And Roberts goes out there. I think Roberts is a fine back. But the fact that Hardy's not out there is criminal. It's bad. It's bad. It's frankly unacceptable for Ahmad Hardy not to be out there. And on 4th and 2, it's unacceptable for him not to be out there on a lot of the plays. I know there's a lot of conversation in the chat. Appreciate everybody hanging out with me. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, as we're all kind of trying to process that game in real time. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Saturday night in December, in between Christmas and New Year's Eve, on this no man's land where time doesn't really exist. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. This is the last thing I'll do here before I head off actually to vacation. So thank you guys. It probably won't stay too long because, man, there's just not a lot to talk about from that game, from that performance, as Missouri puts up 7 total points. Put up 7 points. They tried to run the football. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. They couldn't get any big plays. Only 1 of 3 on the deep passing of 15-plus yards. Offensive line, I thought was good on the run plays. They were moving bodies. I think they won the trench battle. But ultimately, they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. And they couldn't throw the football. It's pretty frustrating that it seems like a lot of the easy buttons this team did have. It seems like a lot of the easy buttons this team had, they just refused to hit them. The screen game, running with Hardy, they just refused to use them. And that's what's so frustrating to me, is that it seems like that there are some pretty evident things that this team can do to make things easy on them, and they just don't do them. They have really talented wide receivers. I know that they've had some wide receivers hit the portal, but it's not like they had bad wide receivers playing in this football game. Donovan Olubade is a phenomenal talent at wide receiver. Kevin Coleman is a great wide receiver. It doesn't make any sense how they can't get anything going. I understand they don't have an offensive coordinator in this game. I understand that they had some guys at the portal. On the defense, it makes sense. I think Josiah Trotter was missed a whole lot more than you thought he would be, right? I think that's what the most frustrating part was on the defense, is that they had some guys on the defensive side of the ball that they were clearly missing. Josiah Trotter, if he doesn't go to the NFL, will be an incredibly good linebacker for this team next year. I think Nick Rodriguez is really good as well. I think I retweeted this from Gabe DeArmond, Power Mizzou.com on Twitter. Nick Rodriguez and Josiah Trotter will be a phenomenal, maybe the best linebacker pairing in the country here if he comes back. If Trotter comes back, and I think he should. I don't know if he's going to grade as high as he wants to. But they were clearly missed on the defensive side of the ball because they could not get off the field. They could not get off the field on 3rd down. Which then, that already puts, if you can't get off the field on 3rd down, that puts stress on your offense that can't convert a 3rd down to save their life. What's interesting here, I'm looking at the third down efficiency stats for both of these offenses. Missouri had third and short between 1 and 4 3 times this game. They went 1 of 3 on third and short. You have the best running back in the country. I know that the Doak Walker didn't go to Ahmad Hardy. It should have. Ahmad Hardy is the best running back in the country. How are you 1 of 3? How are you only converting 1 time on third and short when you have the best running back in the country? It's like lessons were not learned. And that's what's so frustrating, guys. That's what's so frustrating about this game. And I tried so hard not to be annoyed about this game. I tried so hard not to be annoyed about this game. Because of the transfer portal. Because of it's just a bowl game. Because it was played in Jacksonville, Florida. Because they don't have an offensive coordinator. A lot of factors in it that I tried to make it not. And again, I don't know how much this translates into next year, right? But for this game to be the way that this year finishes is so frustrating. So frustrating. It was like the same thing that we saw. I see Keith in the chat here says the D was not the problem, it was dollars and drink. And I agree with that. It's the D's problem they couldn't get off the field, though. The D needed to get off the field. They could not get off the field. Now, when they did get off the field, the offense sucked ass. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. They were ass today. Somehow, this team got to over 100 yards of total offense. I don't know how. 101 passing yards. 101. Through the third quarter, let me double check this, chat. Through the third quarter, 45 passing yards for Missouri. Through 3 quarters of play, Missouri had 45 passing yards. It's frankly unacceptable. Now, they did only run. Let me see. Let me double check this. I think that's right. I think they had 9 plays in that third quarter. They didn't run very many plays in that third quarter. 6. They ran 6 total plays in the third quarter. So I understand them not having a lot of plays in that third quarter because their defense couldn't get off the field and they let Virginia have the ball for, let me double check how long this drive was because boy howdy was it a drive. A 10-minute drive, 19 play, 75-yard, 10-minute drive. That's incredible. That's incredible. Got to get off the field. But even if they did get off the field, it wouldn't have mattered because the offense wasn't doing jack shit. Sorry for cussing, but that's frankly how it is. That's how it is. Ahmad Hardy, 15 carries for 89 yards. He does set the school record for rushing yards in a season. Congrats to him. Great season for Ahmad Hardy. Glad he got to end it by sitting on the sidelines on a 4th down to watch a true freshman quarterback run a rollout naked boot. Free Ray Trucker comments this, and this is 100% true. 100% true. This game does not matter. It's an exhibition. And I know this is true, and this is why I tried not to make him frustrate me so much. But man, it did frustrate me a lot. It frustrated me a lot. little bit behind on the chats, but I appreciate everybody hanging out with me here on this. As JM Jones says, terrible performance and embarrassing way to a wasted season. 100%. Hardy was mad. This is from Keith. Hardy was mad at least 3 times. He yelled at drink. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I want that in my players, right? In my guys, I want them to want the football. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I want to see Drinkwitz doing that. He was shown on TV for sure. Yes. I want to see that. I want to see my guy want the football. Brutal. FTC says, had a month to rev up. Ouch. Yep. Sean Kurtz says, if only the Chiefs could get the Mizzou run game, and if only Mizzou had the Chiefs passing game. Well, I don't know if I think Mizzou has the Chiefs passing game. I think Mizzou has the Chiefs passing game right now. Unfortunately. Tyler Collins says, it's one thing to be one-dimensional, but you have to change it up with misdirection or something. The play calling didn't really build off of each other. That's the other thing, too. Everything seemed so random. Everything just seemed like, I guess we'll call this play. Nothing seemed layered. Again, probably because it's a exhibition game and I shouldn't care so much about it, truthfully. Sorry, Chad. I'm fighting through not a bloody nose, a runny nose over here. So if I'm sniffing, I'm trying to mute myself when I get sniffle. Missouri loses the Gator Bowl, 2025 Gator Bowl, 13-7. In a game that was not played in 1956, but instead 2025 is when that football game was played. And it ended 13-7. Mizzou on top says, the thing that frustrated me is that you had almost a month to prepare for that shit. Yep. Free Red Trucker says, I don't blame Hardy if he wants to transfer. Coaches cost us the game. 2-minute drive by Zollers worked really well at the end of the game. Why not play like that at the beginning? Well, deadlines usually spur some action. But I agree. They have a very talented wide receiver in Donovan Olubade. Kevin Coleman was playing his last college football game, probably. Couldn't figure out how to get those guys at football. I don't know, man. A very frustrating way to end a frustrating season. For sure. I see Keith here says we need a quarterback in the portal. Zollers is not the future, in my opinion, for Missouri. Look, Zollers is a true freshman thrown into a lot of tough situations this year. Wasn't anticipated to take the load or shoulder the load for the majority of the time that he did. And there's clearly some room for him to grow and improve. There needs to be some time for him to grow and improve. I don't think it's bad. I think every year you should go get a transfer quarterback in the portal. I think that's something you should do every single year. You saw what happened in Missouri's quarterback room this year. They had 2 injuries in their quarterback room. They were on their 3rd string quarterback this year. You're going to have to go to the portal and get a quarterback. I saw, I think, was it Sean Kurtz brought out Dylan Raiola? That could be an interesting one, man. I don't know if I would hate that. I don't know if I'd hate Dylan Raiola in this offense. Curtis Nelson says, from Cody Goodwin, Mizzou head coach Eli Drinkwitz, I didn't do a good enough job calling plays tonight. It's on me. That's going to stick with me for a while, not doing enough to help him win. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what happened. That's what happened. He says that all the time, though, right, Chet? So he's always going to take the blame for everything. That's just what he does. That's like his thing. But man, Keith brings this up too. He says the difference in quarterback play between Virginia and Mizzou is the difference in the game. Mizzou can't waste next year on Zollers. I did think it was interesting, though. There was a lack of outside contain by Mizzou's defensive ends, and they just let Chandler get out of the pocket way too much, and that was kind of frustrating to see that happen. And a lot of those times, well, a lot of those times were 3rd downs where Chandler Morris was making a play. Chandler Morris played a lot of football. I mean, that's the other thing. Chandler Morris has played a lot of football. He's been around for a minute. Quarterback experience practically won that game. I think Mizzou got out-coached and Mizzou got out-coached and Virginia had a better quarterback. And that's usually in college football, who has a better coach, who has a better quarterback. That's usually how things go. Virginia had both tonight. And that's how the game went. And Missouri still had a chance to win this football game. Right? They still had a chance to win this football game. I was thinking as they were driving the down, what am I going to talk about? If they come down and win this game, what are we going to talk about? How are we going to remember this game if they win it, right? And they played like shit for 3 3/4 outside of one drive. Out of 2 drives, they played like shit the rest of the game. So 2 out of 11 drives, they would have played good, and we had to come on here and talk about, well, they got it done, they won. Good thing I don't have to do that, and they just fucking lost. Sorry for cussing. It's an overall frustrating game to kind of cap off a pretty frustrating season. Pretty frustrating season for Mizzou. How it ended. And now I guess we dive headfirst into the transfer portal. We dive headfirst into if there will be any other coaching changes for Missouri here. If there's going to be any position coach changes. Obviously, they got themselves an offensive coordinator. We'll focus on that now as the transfer portal will be kicking up here on January 2nd is when players are officially allowed to enter the transfer portal. We'll have that. I'm sure there'll be visitors. I'm sure that Missouri is going to be heavy contenders in the transfer portal. They're going to have to be. They got a lot of spots that they're going to need to replace. They have a lot of spots that they have to fill and a lot of spots that they need to address. Greg says here in the YouTube chat, this defense, for as well as they play, their performance on third down was atrocious. And there's a lot of guys they're going to have to replace on this defense. A lot of guys that are going to need to be replaced. Sean Kurtz, I saw Sean ask this earlier, and I'm glad he asked it again. He says again, how do you pitch this offense to new receivers or even a quarterback? The way that you do it is you say that there's a new offensive coordinator coming in and you show them, oh gosh, don't show them Michigan last year. You show them DK Metcalf and say, we have the same wide receiver coach as this guy's. The guy who coached this guy is this guy. But don't show DK Metcalf punching the fan in the face. Don't show him that. That's a great question. That's a great question, Sean. It's going to be interesting to see how this team responds next season. This was a year going into it that I didn't have a ton of expectations. I didn't think had a ton of expectations. Yeah, Keith, I'm right there with you. Chip Lindsey doesn't wow me at all. Yeah. To be fair, Kirby Moore didn't wow me at all either. For what that's worth. Going into the season, I know that Eli Drinkwitz said a lot of positive things about this football team, as he usually does, about how he felt this team was his most talented team. He felt that this team could do a lot of really good things, and we saw early on in the season when they started 5-0, expectations kind of shifted. But, man, I didn't necessarily see it the same way that Eli Drinkwitz did at SEC Media Days. And I know that we had a lot of expectations for this team to make the playoff when they started 5-0 and stuck close with Alabama. They were really close in it with Alabama. We had a lot of high expectations for this team, but maybe we just moved those expectations a little too quick because this team I didn't think was ever supposed to be a 2-loss team, a 1-loss team. I don't think it was ever going to be that, right? Jack says this all seems a little knee-jerk to me. I want to see how things next year before deciding the season for Drink Sarah. For sure. For sure. There's a lot of things, and I think I said this at the top of the show. If I didn't, I at least thought it at the top of the show. I don't know how much this singular football game translates into next season. I don't know how much it does, right? Drink's not going to be calling the plays. They'll have different wide receivers. They hopefully won't be taking Ahmad Hardy off the field as much. They won't be playing some backups on defense. Hopefully Josiah Trotter's back. Hopefully they can plug some of those holes in the secondary, or plug some of those holes in schematically. I don't know how much this one game completely dictates the future. Right? I think that's where I'm at, is like, I am frustrated singularly with this football game and how this football game played out, but I don't know how much it impacts what the 2026 Missouri Tigers are. And I think, while we talked about it, Eli Drinkwitz is not the best play caller. We know this. That's why he brought an offensive coordinator. That's why Kirby Moore came here. That's why they hired another offensive coordinator, right? Eli Drinkwitz knows that he's not the best play caller. This is a thing that Eli Drinkwitz had to do for this game. And he even admitted it at the podium that he's not necessarily that great of a play caller. So I don't know how much how much that really impacts next year. I see in the chat, Zuba Steve wants to know why we take Hardy out. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know why Hardy was taken out. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Greg says, curious if the quarterback at Michigan will follow his offensive coordinator to Mizzou. If they get Bryce Underwood, that would be sick. I don't know if Bryce Underwood's coming to Mizzou, though. That'd be cool. I'd totally be down for Bryce Underwood. I don't know if that will happen. This offense has so much talent on it, though, too, is the other thing. So this offense has so much talent on it, and they could not make anything work. And that's a huge bummer. Actually, the whole Missouri season, this whole Missouri season has been a huge bummer. That's what really what it's come down to. Started off with, I didn't necessarily think this team was going to be as good as last year coming into the season. They start off 5-0. They hang in there with Alabama. They look like a legit football team. And then the loss to Vandy happens. They hang in there with Alabama. They get a gritty double overtime win over Auburn. They lose at Vandy, and the wind is just kind of taken out the sails. Zuba Steve, I know that they've taken Hardy out. They had the running back rotation, right, to keep those guys fresh. And Jamal Roberts has always kind of been like the late in the half kind of guy because of his ball security and his ability to pass block. So that's kind of why Roberts had been in the game later in like the first half and kind of later in the game, sometimes because of his ball security and his pass blocking. But that doesn't make sense for today. Greg, that's a very good comment. I will end on your comment. Sean Kurtz says Mizzou football and basketball with fool's gold, feasting on easy non-con games and getting beat in embarrassing ways in games that matter against good teams. Yep. That's 100% true. I like this comment from Greg here. Could be worse. We could have been watching our basketball team play. Yeah. We could have been watching the basketball team. I think that's going to do it for me here on the Mizzou 2 postgame show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with me here as talking Mizzou and Virginia 13-7 loss in the Gator Bowl. Snaps Missouri's bowl winning streak at 2. Appreciate everybody hanging out on during no man's land time. We're December 27th, in between that Christmas and New Year's Day, where you have no idea what time it is or what day it is. You have no concept of time. Sean wants to know how women's gymnastics is right now. Probably stellar. Wrestling is probably off to a hot start. We'll always have those. Guys. Appreciate you guys. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back with more. I'll be out this next week, so we won't have a Mizzou That's Who, but the week after that, I believe we will have a Mizzou That's Who. Myself and Maggie kind of recapping the season, giving our final thoughts on it, and putting to bed season, I believe, 4 of Mizzou That's Who. Appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with me. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let us know how you like the podcast. Be a friend. Tell a friend, as Pat McAfee says. So, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your time with loved ones. Enjoy your time with everyone. Remember, none of this matters. Don't let it make you upset. This was an exhibition game. I don't know how much impact it has on the 2026 Tigers. We can be frustrated about it now. Let's move on. We got bigger fish to fry. And the sun will eventually explode, and we'll all die eventually. I'll see you later.